All right, everybody, welcome back. We are going to be doing another poetry breakdown analysis, kind of video, audio. The video is just going to stay the static image of the poem, so you can kind of read it and alt-tab or do whatever you want afterwards. But I still suggest reading along with it. I messed around with the highlighting as I went type of thing, but not only was it annoying to line up, which it got desynced last time, I just didn't really care enough, honestly, and the fact that it was actually really annoying. I found myself getting actively distracted by my own highlighting of words, and so we're not going to be doing with that anymore. But so this is going to be a much shorter poem. This poem is from the second poetry book, the Zoo Poem Pum Poem book. But this is we're just going to follow the normal kind of pattern we did before. I'm just going to read it once, maybe read it again, and then we'll get into the kind of the history, the background of it, a little context for it, and then just an explanation kind of line by line as we go. So this poem is titled Accidence. So here we go. Accidence. Oh, thy visage, thine holy wings aspread, dripping butter and honey. There buzzes your crown of bees, your gaze pollinating, and turns us into flowers. Gold floats upon your hips, thin chains twisting in the summer wind, and around your feet are littered the heads of heroes, tongues and eyeballs gleaming. One more time. Accidents. Oh, thy visage, thine holy wings aspread, dripping butter and honey. There buzzes your crown of bees, your gaze pollinating, and turns us into flowers. Gold floats upon your hips, thin chains twisting in the summer wind, and around your feet are littered the heads of heroes, tongues and eyeballs gleaming. So this was actually initially prompted by, I think, my dad saying that he was surprised that some of the not too many of the poems were kind of beautiful in a sense. And though that's certainly up for debate, it gave me the impetus to be able to start something with that in mind, of the sentiment of beauty in that sense. And so I kind of went with the muse sentiment mixed in with an angel and Medusa and etc. So we'll kind of get to that in a second. But most of the truly fantastic imagery, in a sense, that I evoke or create or write tends to fall into one of two camps in terms of environment. The primordial jungle, or the Greek mythos Mediterranean coastal culture or society. And those kind of also define a sort of binary of dark and light, respectively, of primordial jungle setting being the dark, and then the Greek cliff sides and waters and myth is the kind of the light, this very highlighted kind of animated iteration of it. And so this certainly falls under the Greek mythos camp. But so just to start with the title, Accidence. Basically, the two major things at play here are just, obviously, this is a kind of homonym for the word accidents being just a mistake or something like that. But so already, I mean, I like that type of wordplay. Honestly, if you haven't seen it before, it's worth doing. And it just happened to come up. And in a title, I think you can kind of let things hang a little bit more. The connections don't have to be as vivid necessarily as the line by line in the body of the poem, I don't think. And so the title just tends to be a great place to be able to mess around in a different way. And so Freebie messes around like this. I mean, any stacked on complexity, I'm always a fan of. But so then the real meat of it for me was the sense that like an angel's name being Providence, or those types of ideals that are anthropomorphized or kind of turned into, I mean, they're personified in paintings and in depictions of things, and as these angels crooning over a city or some kind of historical monument and stuff like that. If you might have seen it in art or in various depictions otherwise in real life or in stories. And so this name of Providence, I wanted to allude to that kind of ENCE suffix, creation of this angel-like ideal for a character named Accidence. And so then this poem goes on to describe that character of who Accidence, this angel figure, might be or look like. And so we opened with, "Oh, thy visage," the kind of, stereotypically, not even, it's Shakespearean in a sense that people affiliate it with Shakespeare, but that kind of exclamation, the single letter O exclamation, but also in Greek myths and tragedies and dramas, etc., more like dramas and tragedies, the sense of the chorus character was this observant kind of pack of people that were always floating around and singing and doing interludes and opening observations and stuff. And so to me, the crowd kind of jokingly almost stereotypically exclaiming, "Oh," to the overwhelming, simple response. So we just use "Oh" to open like that. But thy visage, so with thy, again, with this Shakespearean type of flowery language, and visage, the muse, the beautiful woman's visage. It's not her face, it's her visage. But also a mythological sense of visage. And so we are looking at this angel character, this figure now. So thine holy wings aspread. Again, I wanted to make this angel kind of providence character play out more visibly with literally, she has these, like, imagine the Venus coming in on the sea foam clamshell painting, if you can, that kind of opening glory in a sense of, again, this personified ideal. But visage, to just back up a second, when I picked that word, it very heavily reminded me of Medusa in the sense that she has one of the most powerful visages ever. It's literally this crippling visage. And so just by looking at her, it evokes this extreme. And I wanted to play with that connection. And so Medusa enters as a character in this angel transformation. And so thine holy wings aspread. We've got an angelic type of Medusa. If we even pick up Medusa in those first couple of lines, but dripping butter and honey, that the angel or the wings themselves are so saturated with this sweetness, but again, Accidence is the character name. That sweetness kind of doesn't really make sense here. Why are we getting sweetness? Almost a trickery a little bit might tinkle in afoot. But this double golden dripping sticky, like butter and honey, very rarely going together. And so almost if one wing was butter or one wing was honey, we get a weird duality there. If the body itself is dripping, if you're imagining the angel muse white sashed toga almost character, but dripping with honey, a very bizarre but extremely light paleted sunsetty kind of look. There buzzes your crown of bees. And so now we've got these bees around the honey and the butter. Are they being made on the angel, or are they just the kind of familiar of the angel in a sense, like the cat or the dog? We have these bees, or the cat or the toad or the rat or whatever it might be, that there are bees instead. But no, it's like a crown of bees is a very cool image of a halo creation that I really liked, and with the feeding on the honey or producing the honey on her. But then also, importantly, the big connection here with these bees is that in the Divine Comedy, a line that I've always really, really liked is that the angels around the kind of ultimate empire of heaven eventually are described as, or leading up to that, are described bee-like in their buzz. The angels buzzed in the air. And God, that line just like absolutely riveted me, and I loved it. And so that is the explicit connection here with this angel and bees connection. Any type of those I ever make is kind of partially alluding to that. And so now we get also like a Beatrice character, the kind of the female lead, quote unquote, that Dante is pursuing this whole time, his love that then connects with him and brings him into heaven. Accidence becomes that Beatrice-like character of leveling up Dante, and she gives him this fiery sight to see the glories of heaven. But now this is entered into this character of Accidence. Your gaze pollinating. So now we complete the image of the Medusa that we kind of briefly alluded to technically before, but instead of a gaze that turns you to stone, it's a gaze pollinating. I just also like the combo words like that. Just gaze pollinating sounds fun and cool. I like the meter of it. But your gaze pollinating and turns us into flowers, that it's not the stone basilisk quality of Medusa. We have the inversion of that, where it turns you into flowers. It literally pollinates you to the bee, like a ray of bees coming from this angel character to go and convert you into flowers, this like super bee characteristic, this quality, but it's also this type of impregnation of pollinating like that. And when we go back to Medusa being raped as a character, and that she is vilified for that in a sense in the cultural approach to her, and what she stands for in that regard, this impregnation, this impregnating angel is almost be worse to be impregnated now all of a sudden than turned into stone. And now this Accidence angel, what is this bizarre, freakish duality starts to again linger just in the background of all these beautiful words, these on paper flowery visuals and languages. Gold floats upon your hips, thin chains twisting in the summer wind. I wanted to almost take even if those light white robes are flowing on her and dripping in honey, but if we got rid of the robes, necessarily there weren't any robes necessarily mentioned so far, but that if we instead almost make her the naked angel character, but almost, again, covered with these bees and the Mother Nature kind of but combo angel, but then instead she's just covered with only these thin golden chains, so thin that they float in the wind and they twist as the wind flies by her. And so where the honey is not, there are these strings and little light kind of high fashion-y golden aesthetic chains just barely on her, like on her hips and on her breasts and around her neck potentially and down her legs. Thin chains twisting in the summer wind and around your feet. There's a brief little pause here that I owe because this is again a kind of juke line where thin chains twisting in the summer wind and around your feet. Could be a sentence in itself, or kind of they're twisting in the summer wind and like you've got anklets of these gold chains, and explicitly in this case she does, if you want to put that on her, and it can be put on her with the way that the sentence is structured, and so we can give her those twisting gold chains around her feet. And around your feet are littered the heads of heroes, tongues and eyeballs gleaming. The sudden rapid inversion, and if anything, this culmination of what had been alluded to before, in that we have this beautiful character that we literally go kind of top down from head to toe, quite literally. And when we reach, it's all glory at the top. And as we get lower, the truth is revealed along the feet. Literally littered at her feet are these half petrified, but they're not petrified, they're wet. The tongues and eyeballs gleaming. The sun has to be hitting her. Her own light is illuminating just barely the glazed over tongues and eyes that are all around the ground, presumably because of her actions. They are her victims that lie either impregnated or dead or gaze pollinated along her feet. And that inversion kind of juke shift, I mean, that's obviously kind of what we expect to do, hope to do, is kind of subvert those expectations, but also finish the creation of this pseudo-Medusa that does a lot of really funky, kind of interesting things, I think. And so, I mean, really, it's a tiny poem. It's short, but it's got a lot of really funky, complete mythological angles for me that I actually really, really like this poem. I hope that you guys can appreciate it now, too, and kind of what I've talked about it for. And yeah, so that'll be that for now. We'll come back with another one later. Thank you for hanging out. We'll be back.